My name is Philip Plotch, and I'm the principal researcher here at the Eno Center for Transportation. Welcome to the latest in our series of webinars. We're an independent, partisan, and nonprofit think tank that shapes public debate on multimodal transportation issues. Our webinar today is titled Success Factors in Private Contracting for Public Transportation. And we have three experts to talk about this timely topic. We have Laura Hendricks. She's from the North American Transit Alliance. Sabrina Glenn is from the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. And Mary Ellen DeFrias, she's from the Greater Attleboro-Taunton Regional Transit Authority. Our guests will each talk for about 5 minutes, and then we'll take questions from all of you. Whenever you want, you can enter questions in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. We hope you enjoy our webinar and that you can help support us by donating or becoming an Eno member. Just check out the link in the chat box. And with that, here's Laura.
Well, thank you, Phil, and thank you all for joining us today. As Phil said, I'm Laura Hendricks, and I'm the CEO of TransDev US, and I'm also the board chair of the North American Transit Alliance, or NATA. And today, I'm here to discuss and represent the North American Transit Alliance, or NATA. So to give you a little bit of background about who the North American Transit Alliance is, we're an alliance made up of private sector companies operating transit systems in the US and Canada. We represent over 15% of the public transit workforce in the US, with over 71,000 employees. The NATA members, we operate in 46 states, including the top 10 largest cities in the United States and 5 provinces in Canada. Our members include Keolis, MV Transportation, RATP Dev, TransDev, and We Drive You. When you think about the title of Success in Private Contracting, the contracting rules and the structures that we permit and flexibility to our public agencies' partnerships are many. So our contracts include operations and maintenance partnerships. They include operating the staff, or a transit management contract as referred to, insurance, training. And I think if you look at the right-hand slide, outlined in the right-hand side, we really are flexible in the structure and the roles that we can play as private operators for public transit based upon the public agency's need and the communities that we serve to provide the best solution possible for affordable, safe, reliable mobility solutions. The key to the overall success of contracting is partnerships with our public agencies, and understanding the challenges that we face together and ensuring that we can deliver what the communities expect and deserve. So again, I think the flexibility in the contracting roles and the structures that we outline are many that play well to the service of the communities. When you look at what the Eno study highlighted on some of the contracting best practices, obviously in any partnership, we're not just a vendor, it is a partnership. It's about open, transparent, and results-driven partnerships between the private contractor and the transit agencies that's providing the solutions for the communities. Together, it's creating a better experience for all of our passengers. The contract should allow the private contractor the flexibility to innovate. And I'll talk a little bit and give a few examples and highlight some of the innovative solutions that our members of NATA have been able to bring to different cities throughout the US. They also should encourage the positive working relationships between the private contractors and the public transit agencies. The better we partner together to find solutions in a collaborative way, we see the success of what partnering with a private operator to provide the public transit services to our communities can bring in service innovations, particularly as we face many challenges that today, coming out post-pandemic, in today's environment, whether it be the flexibility on the ridership and the commuters have changed, or how we face the fiscal responsibilities that lie ahead of us. So again, partnering with the private contractors and allowing us to be a part of that early on can really help bring innovative solutions to the communities that we serve. To highlight a few examples, innovation that we've done. You know, when you think about the change that I mentioned earlier on the change in the commuter patterns because of remote work post-pandemic and less people traveling during rush hour, some of the examples is RATP Dev, one of our members of NATA, partnered with City Bus in Lubbock, Texas, to implement an on-demand microtransit service that's working very effectively. In 2017, pre-pandemic, trying to look at innovative solutions, MV Transportation partnered with the Los Angeles Department of Transportation on a microtransit that was in West Los Angeles to enhance mobility options in the area. We also have an example on innovative solutions on Keolis. Together with Loudoun County and its technology partners, Keolis increased ridership per vehicle by 15% while maintaining a high passenger satisfaction and a low wait time from less than 10 minutes. A great example of how partnering with the private operators can bring mobility solutions to meet the current demands of our communities in an affordable way. And on behalf of Nassau County, Transdev began testing various microtransit solutions as early as 2014. And today, Nassau County, or Nassau Intercounty Express NICE, operated by Transdev, offers 4 unique services in the different communities and performs over 500 trips per day on-demand services, and will soon be launching 3 more new cities rides to provide that flexibility. It's about the flexibility and reliability of our services that are going to truly make a difference in the partnerships. And by partnering with the private companies as represented in NATA, we can bring flexible solutions with our expertise, as I mentioned earlier, in the 46 states and 5 provinces that we operate in Canada, and most of our companies operate worldwide. So by partnering with the private operators, we allow that best practice sharing from those that we have worked with in other cities and around the world to bring mobility solutions to each and every one of the communities. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. With that, I'm now going to turn it over to our partner, Sabrina Glenn, who operates and here on behalf of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Sabrina?
Sabrina, we had trouble hearing you. Let's see if we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we're good.
Oh, okay. There must have been a delay. My apologies. So as mentioned, thank you for that great introduction. I am Sabrina Glenn. I am the Senior Director of Transit here for the RTC of Southern Nevada. Hopefully my internet is not all of a sudden having an issue, but if it does, I apologize. I have been with the agency the last 2 years, but I was specifically brought on to assist with the transition of our contract from MV and Keolis into what is now operated by Transdev. From an RTC perspective, what makes us an interesting agency is that, one, we do have the highest fare box recovery of any agency in the country, which is something that we're extremely proud of. We also have the lowest subsidy per rider, the lowest operating costs, and we are the 14th busiest bus system in the country. That is an unknown fact, as many people have been to Las Vegas but don't understand the extent to which we operate. Next slide. So a couple of facts and figures about us. Our transit service launched back in 1992, and we have a fleet of more than 400 vehicles that operates on 39 fixed routes across the Las Vegas Valley. We have about 1.7 million annual service hours per year. And I think what makes us a little bit unique is the fact that 13 of our 39 routes operate 24/7, and all of our other services operate basically from 4 a.m. till 2:30 a.m. So we refer to ourselves as a workhorse as it relates to our daily operations and service. We did have in fiscal year 24, 52.2 million trips that we provided. This is down for us from pre-pandemic levels. However, we have seen about an 87% return for our residential service. In talking with Philip about what kind of makes us unique here in Las Vegas. I think one of the big things is the actual operations we provide for the various special events and activities that occur. My special events and detours team will tell you there are pretty much 2 weeks a year where we do not have an event occurring here in Las Vegas. And I would say probably only 3 weeks a year that our service is not impacted in some way because of those events. The chart, hopefully showing on the screen, provides you with an overview of kind of the variety and upscale from the 1980s to today of the different types of activities and events we have. And these can be any sort of event, from a small service or festival that impacts our downtown to something as large scale as Formula One, which has significant closures to our Las Vegas Strip area. From a private contracting perspective, a little bit of history. As I mentioned, when I came here 2 years ago, this was during the transition phase of our contract from a 2-contractor project where we had MV and Keolis operating one of each of our yards and providing both our residential and strip service, to our current contract, which is now fully operated by TransDev. One of the unique things in our last transition back in fiscal year 23 was that we opted to go for a 4-year contract. One of the reasons for this was just coming out of the pandemic and the uncertainty of what was going to be occurring, what funding was going to look like. We thought it best to have a smaller scale project. And now that I'm getting ready to rebid said project and start working on the RFP, I'm wondering if that was the best idea ever. But it did allow us to have some flexibility and understand what was going to be occurring in the in our community as well as nationally for transit. I think as we get into more details and questions open up, there are 4 key takeaways that are important to us here. One was related to industry review. As anybody will tell you, the contract that you develop as you are working with a third-party contractor, that is the nuts and bolts of what you will see occur within your community. And so one of the steps that we took and will continue to take is an industry review process, allowing those that are going to bid on the project, allowing some of our peer agencies to provide us with feedback, ask us questions, make sure that we were incorporating all of the details into our scope of services before we actually went out to bid, that ultimately transitions into the contract that we hold our contractor responsible for. The other item is really allowing the experts to be the experts. And this is hard. This is really hard because there are several times when, we know our community, we know the service we want to provide to the community, but allowing your contractor to come in and have a say or a seat at the table, understand, bring in the resources that they have to really make your project successful is an important part of that aspect. Flexibility and innovation. I think if you asked us what is one of the key reasons that we do contract out for an O&M operator, is because it does allow a different level of flexibility and their ability to bring in innovations, successes, things that have been done either across the country or, as Laura mentioned, TransDev working internationally to help us identify ways to make our service more effective and efficient. I think the other thing that we're really starting to focus on and understand, and will definitely be part of our future bid opportunities, is a carrot and the stick opportunity, right? And so a lot of times the focus is on liquidated damages as it relates to what you've built into your contract and holding the contractor accountable there. But going back to that flexibility and innovation, they may come with opportunities, ideas, different ways to look at something that they should in fact be rewarded for. And so having that symbiotic relationship is really important as you move forward. So that said, I look forward to questions, but I will now turn it over to Mary Ellen.
All right. Thank you so much, Serena. That was really informative as to how big your service area is. My name is Mary Ellen DeFrias, and I serve as the Administrator CEO of the Greater Attleboro-Taunton Regional Transit Authority, we refer to as GATRA. And we are a transit authority within Massachusetts. We're one of 15. So we cover everything that is not the MBTA, the 100 communities around Boston. And the RTAs in Massachusetts were formed in 1976 under Mass General Law. So we are defined by state statute and defines our areas. And currently GATRA covers 30 communities. And because of the sheer size of our service area, we need to offer a variety of public transportation modes. There's no one set area that will work. So we offer both fixed route and demand response. We also offer microtransit, and we often will also partner with our councils on aging and provide them with some assistance to do some transportation in their region where we can help with funding, and they in turn help us move passengers. So through the Transit Authority, we can own, manage, and lease properties and facilities, and we have our bus shelters. So as you can see here, our service area is fairly large. We are, for those of you who know Massachusetts, we are just below Boston and right before the Cape. So the bottom part of our service area is actually the gateway to the Cape. Because of this, we do need to be creative about when we think about what our service needs were, but it also really had an impact on how we came back out of the pandemic. So in Massachusetts, we are funded by a local assessment. We're also funded through the state partners, and we are a direct recipient of federal funds. And that's what pays for the fixed route demand response and microtransit. We have about 17 employees who help administer what we need to do on the finance side, and we are supplemented by our operator when we are a We Drive You property. We also are unique, and we are one of the 2 RTAs in the state who also cover brokerage, which is all of the medical transportation. And so on top of the regular work that we do, we also work with about 70 different transportation providers for half of the state and do all of the medical transportation. And that brings my staff up to another 29 employees who help us make sure that people get to the medical appointments that they need to get to. So the way our funding is broken down, we are still collecting fares. We had done a very brief stint during COVID where we didn't collect fares, but we are one of the RTAs who has come back and is still collecting fares. They're an important part of our revenue mix. We get federal funding and the local assessment and state, and then some of our other operating revenue is rent in our facilities and advertising. We have been very fortunate in Massachusetts coming out of the pandemic that there was a renewed recognition of how important the public transportation is, and more importantly, that it's not just all about Boston and the MBTA. And so the legislature has stepped up and helped to increase our funding in the past couple of years, which is really allowing us to expand the service and provided us with a great opportunity to go to our contractor, our management company, and say, all right, what can we do? How can we expand? What's the best way we can do this? So what makes us a little unique here in Massachusetts is we cannot operate our own service. Right out of the Mass General Law that authorized us, it says direct operations of mass transportation service. We are not permitted to directly operate. So we have to have a public-private partnership. There is no other option for us. And most of this was driven by the fact that when we were established in 1974, there were already private services providing this, and the state legislature did not want to harm them in any way. So they were very specific when we set this up that we would continue to provide that work out to contractors, which has been very successful for all of us for a lot of the reasons that both of my counterparts here mentioned on innovation and outside the box thinking. So we're looking forward to any questions that you might have on this.
Great. Thanks, all three of you. I'm going to start with Laura, this idea of innovation and bringing ideas from one agency to another. Could you think of any specific examples of that?
Yeah, I think as I highlighted, Phil, I think some of the microtransit solutions, right, where we're trying to adapt the services that are offered to the communities to meet the changing demands as we see the shift in ridership and where people work and live, it's very important. We also have a lot of expertise when you think about innovation. Sometimes people think innovation is only a technology solution, and while certainly there's advanced technology that helps bring innovative solutions, it's also sometimes just a change in processes, right? So I think when you think about the microtransit examples that I demonstrated from all the operating partners of NATA, we also have best practices on technology solutions, whether that be, the helping with the best technologies, because we've seen in one city, whether it be a fare box or how an individual passenger can connect to where the bus is at or where the ride's at. There's different solutions that an individual agency may pilot or test, but as a private contractor, we have the opportunities because of our footprint throughout the United States I talked about to really share the best practices and the learnings from what's been implemented, not only within the US, but globally. And I think that gives an advantage. Another example of that is as we transition into the zero emissions, our partnerships with different agencies on where they're at in that process helps us understand the learnings of that innovative technology, whether it be the battery operated or the hydrogen. And again, bringing the global expertise that we have, that many of us have operated globally for many years now, a large fleet of zero emission vehicles. We can bring that expertise and for example, as TransDev, developing a program called Take Charge. It's not something that we bought off the shelf. It's something that we created with our engineers and our expertise at the group level, being an international company. And we can bring that to our clients here in the US to help maximize the implementation as we transition to zero emission vehicles, and how to ensure that that innovative technology, whether it be in hydrogen or the electric vehicles, maximize the use of that battery operation by our Take Charge program. And that's just one example, and there's many more that I think I could talk about on the innovation side.
Great. So I want to ask Sabrina and Mary Ellen a question about contracting. So Sabrina, you mentioned the importance of contract. So first, I'll start with Mary Ellen. And can you explain what goes into a contract? So you're hiring a private firm to operate service. Is this like one page with a few things, or is it like hundreds of pages and lots of requirements? What does it look like, a contract?
It's pretty extensive. I mean, it's a legal document, and I've yet to meet a lawyer who can write anything in 10 words that they can't write in 500. So, and we want to protect both sides, but we are looking for some basics of providing the operation, providing the wraparound services, right? I'm not just looking for a general manager to show up, but who's back behind the general manager, right? What kind of HR resources can they bring to the table? What kind of innovations can they bring to the table? So we do outline some of that. We'll look at the terms, the conditions, the costs. Our contract is for both fixed route and microtransit. And so we have different costs established for those different services. And we'll spell all of that out in the contract. So they do get pretty lengthy.
Okay. And Sabrina, could you tell us a little bit about your contract, the kinds of things that you put into those contracts?
Yeah, so I will second what Mary Ellen said. Our contract is several hundreds of pages long, but it does cover everything, as we are an O&M contracted service for fixed routes specifically. It does everything from our day-to-day operations to maintenance to, as mentioned, human resources, payroll, union negotiations. One of the things that is really important to us here at the RTC is that we are providing proper wages for those individuals that are working with us. And so that's explicitly called out within our contract. That makes it, I think, a little bit unique, the level to which we try to engage and ensure that contractors that are coming in are meeting those expectations. And there are specific details related to our day-to-day operations on what we are identifying as far as the expectations for service. I think it is important for me to mention that in addition to our fixed route contract that is currently being managed by TransDev, we also have our paratransit services that are a contracted out service, as well as our microtransit program or on-demand services. So from an agency perspective, it is something that we believe allows us to have an efficiency to the service that we provide, as well as mentioned, the flexibility and innovations.
So maybe it'll help me if we could just sort of take like one piece. So let's say cleanliness. I assume there must be something in the contract about cleanliness, some sort of a standard. And then I'm curious how you enforce something like that. So Mary Ellen, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Sabrina again.
Sure.
Is there something about cleanliness in the contract?
It's, I wouldn't say, I mean, it's basic appearance, right? We have clauses in there that so that the operating company understands they're representing GATRA. Where the buses are not branded as We Drive You, they're branded as GATRA buses. So even though they're being, and it says operated by We Drive You. So we have set expectations that the professional level with drivers, with their appearance, with the vehicles, the buses, and we do ride the buses. So we're out there and we see them. I have to say cleanliness is never one of the things I've ever worried about in all of these years. And prior to We Drive You, we had TransDev for many years. That was never an issue.
Yeah, so I will jump in.
And Sabrina, how about you?
Yeah, so from our perspective, same scenario, right? The name on the side of the bus is the RTC, and so nobody very rarely will jump on social media and say TransDev should have done this, that, and the other. And cleanliness, our appearance is important, as I mentioned, related to the number of events and activities that we have here. A good 30 to 40% of our ridership, especially on our strip, is visitors, and so that is part of the impression that they have about us as a community as well as a service. And so it is something that is documented and identified in our contract and a responsibility of our contractor. I think you can all also imagine we are Las Vegas. So the Las Vegas Strip, after some fun events, can be a rowdy place to be. And so ensuring that the 24/7 nature of our service provides that same level of customer experience at 2 a.m. that we do at 11 o'clock in the morning is important to us.
And Laura, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, that brands that we represent, which is our communities, whether it be the RTC or GATA, it's important that we maintain their standard. It is, as they said, as Sabrina said, and Mary Ellen, operated by, but we understand the importance of private operators, that we are stepping in to represent our partners, and that's the public agency. And so that is very important that we maintain the standards that attract, again, all of us are here to provide a service to our communities in a safe, reliable, affordable manner. And they want that experience to be. So it should be clean, right? It should represent who we are as partners together, both the agency and the private operator. But we understand that importance. And I do think that that is an important aspect of it, because that's going to be, people want to get on something that looks nice, that it attracts people in ridership. And all of our goals are really aligned across every agency and across every other private operator to ensure we continue to provide the safe, reliable, innovative solutions that attract riderships, right? We need to get the congestions out of our communities, out of our cities. We need to be able to create mobility solutions that give people equal opportunities and access to things. And that includes our rural markets. So the more innovative solutions that we bring, so we keep our cities vibrant and also our rural areas for that equal access is very, very important. And that goes back to the original question, Phil, about the appearance and cleanliness. It is important. You want to attract people to it. And that sends a message, if I'm a rider, about that industry. So we as the private operators take that serious, and we understand the roles that we play in that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm looking at some of the questions that we've been getting. And one is interesting. It's you're getting proposals when you issue an RFP for private contractors. How do you know if the proposer is lowballing on maintenance or on driver wages or benefits or some other area? Any thoughts
I'll
about
jump
this?
in.
I would say
I'll jump
Sabrina or
in
Mary
first.
Ellen. Yeah.
Yeah. For the RTC through that process, one, we've contracted for years. So we have a lot of experience in understanding pricing and what the market is dictating as it relates to cost for different services, equipment, et cetera. We also do a very intensive ICE process as a part of our RFP. And so that way we are understanding kind of the experience of other communities, some of our partners, and what they have experienced kind of during the time point that we're evaluating the contract to operate. So that is another important aspect.
And so the only thing I would add to that, because we do all of those things, but we also have to approve their budget. So and give them the parameters, because our management contract is only for the management fee. We're still responsible for 100% of the costs. So driver's salaries, it's a 100% pass through the way we're set up. So we give them some bumpers when they do union negotiations, and they're the ones in the room, and we're the ones who look over their budget and kind of work with them to set the budget.
I think the other thing too that kind of relates to that I would add to the conversation is just for us, and we've learned from this, price isn't the number one determinant on who we select as our vendors. And I think that is important, because you have to really look at what is your goal as far as the level of service that you're wanting to provide to your community. And certainly not in all cases, but in some cases, we know you'll get what you pay for, right? And so the level of constraints that you may put on a contractor to come in and really meet those expectations needs to be considered as you're looking at price and the proposals that are coming in.
Got it. There's a question. I don't understand what it is. Can you please give more details about your ICE process, ICE?
Take that, Sabrina.
Can somebody answer?
Who wants to
And first, you can
go first.
So an ICE
okay,
is
just if you could tell us all what ICE.
It's an independent contract analysis or I forget what the E is, but it's basically what we're looking at is what do we think it should be? So before we even go out to bid, what do we expect the cost to come in at? Because we need it for our own budget purpose. I can't budget for, $1 million a year management fee. That's not in my budget number. So I need to figure out what is the realistic number that this is going to cost me. So we work out, and you do this for any project you do, not just management contracts. Under federal, we have to do it for anything that we're spending federal funds on.
Right. And so for us, we use sometimes, depending on the contract, just as Mary Ellen mentioned, we will do our independent cost estimate internally, or we may actually work with an accounting or auditing firm to help us identify kind of what those market level costs are going to be for anything from what it should cost us for labor to what it may cost us for tires and maintenance activities.
So Laura, let me try this one for you. And I don't totally understand the first part. Should RFPs require a financial bond, BOND? And the second part is, should agencies seeking smaller local operators pay twice a month to reduce their financing costs? Can you help me with that one?
Yeah, I think when you look at the bonding issue, right, there's, different agencies require different things, whether it be for an RFP, it's called a bid bond, right? And so if some clients or some agencies or private operators have to post a bid, not understanding what's outlined in the RFP requirements, it may be a detractor for agencies or private contractors to sign up to post a bond just for the right to bid. I think we need to understand, as many as we submit an RFP or an RFI and then the RFP, again, the earlier that we can work together with the public agencies on outlining that, the better off we'll all be. But, it would be, sometimes it's a disadvantage for private contractors to get into a bid bond where you have to post a bond just to have the right to bid, and then you get in and you better understand you have to walk away, then that bond is collected. So a lot of agencies have figured that out and don't post bid bonds. Obviously, the bond for operational performance is not uncommon in the industry, and we understand that. But I think the more that we look to solve solutions in a partnership, the better off we'll all be to provide the affordable, safe, reliable mobility solutions, as I talked about. And the what was the second question portion of that, Phil? I'm sorry.
The second question was, should agencies seek who are looking to get small local operators bidding, if they pay twice a month instead of once a month, it would probably reduce the financing costs. So should agencies pay twice a month?
I think that goes for everybody, right? I think we understand the cost of the operations on a monthly basis from the private operator as well as the public agency is pretty consistent. And I think, and we do have a lot of our agencies who do that today, right? So the more that we can partner, just as we're seeing on the OEM side and the bus manufacturing, right? The more that we partner and help that, and if we can pay on a more frequent basis on twice a month, it's known you true up at the end of the month. I think the better off it helps private companies, right? I mean, we are private operators and cash flow is important. And the more that we can understand that and structure such, I think the benefit you'll have to keep a viable business partners as private contractors.
So this is a question for Sabrina. And I'm going to put it into a couple of different parts, taking two questions and putting them together. Is there a reason you went from 2 providers to 1? And the other part is, by having more than one provider in your region, maybe they keep on their toes. They feel like there's a little more competition. I know London has lots of different bus operators who provide private bus services, all under the London logo. So is there? Can you explain why you just have one? And do you think there is a benefit of having 2?
So I think that there can be arguments made to both, right? Definitely pros and cons on each side of that coin. For us, one of the reasons we opted to consolidate was because the opportunity to service the entire valley and to ensure that we are being efficient with how we are providing service was an important aspect for us. And so just for example, when you have 2 contractors performing service in the same area, you are restricted to only so many vehicles can pull out of this yard. Only so many vehicles can service this part of the valley, especially as we are getting into more discussions on alternative fuel vehicles. And so for us, the ability to combine those, have one dispatching unit where you can, pull road supervisors from one area to help cover another area, have one BOC that is communicating across the valley to all operators, streamlining communications, the flexibility to say, oh, we're overstaffed at one yard and let's allow operators to help provide support on this service. It just seemed like an opportunity for us coming out of the pandemic to restructure that. And so it really is, I think, on an agency by agency basis, and then just really understanding what are you trying to provide in the community at that time. I don't think that our agency would say that we would never go back to a two-party system, but based on where we were a year ago and understanding where we were trying to make efficiencies and improvements, that was important to us.
And Mary Ellen, the 1 versus 2 thought?
I agree that there are pros and cons to both. We actually went from 3 to 1, and a lot of it was just strictly, it's easier for oversight, right? We are ultimately responsible to the federal government for everything that happens. And if we can pick up the phone and make one phone call if something is going wrong, as opposed to, okay, who do I need to call for this? And I might have to call, if they kind of overlap, I might be calling a couple of people, and who, becomes it's not my problem, right? So it gives us a greater level of accountability, and it's easier for my staff to be able to stay on top of the oversight that we're responsible for.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Philip, I would like to add into what Mary Ellen said, because I think I may have neglected to illustrate the importance of that, because it is our responsibility to, as my CEO always says, inspect what we expect, right? And so the more contractors you have, part of the reason that we have opted to contract out is to improve that effectiveness and that efficiency. And so when we had multiple contractors, our little team had 2 operations meetings, 2 service meetings, everything we were doing was being duplicated for each one of those contractors, and we still had the same level of staff. And so the consolidation has really, I think, made us as an oversight more effective because of that.
Got it. So Laura mentioned partnership, and I think that was such an important element of this. So could you explain, just from the Massachusetts and Denver perspective, the kinds of ways that you do partner, and how their expertise has helped you? So does the agency make all the determinations about service, or as a partnership, do you make changes based upon their expertise?
It's a combined, right? They're the experts on the operations, right? And they're there day to day on the ground. How many drivers do we have? How many drivers have vacation time? There's a lot of factors that go into putting service on the road. It's a lot of joint meetings. We meet with our operations, different parts of our operations staff almost on a weekly basis, whether it's sitting in on the operations meetings, whether it's capital meetings to do long-term planning. They bring an expertise to the table, and that's part of the draw to having them. So
Great.
when we look at those things, we're really looking for dialogue.
And Sabrina?
I would say the same thing. I think because of the level of complexity of the services that we offer, there is probably a meeting with our contractor on a daily basis, right? Whether that's our special events team, our detours group meeting, our day-to-day residential service. And so we really do rely on them, or believe that they are an extension of our agency, and expect and want them to operate that way.
Got it. And Laura, we're running out of time, but I want to give you a chance if you had some final thoughts about this.
Yeah, I think it's important, as both Mary Ellen and Sabrina have indicated, it is a partnership. There's a level of expertise the agencies bring, the policy and the planning, and a lot of other great expertise in their leadership and their teams that work with the private operators. And then the private operators can bring the innovative best practice sharing that we see throughout the US, Canada, as well as globally. And so I think the more that we continue to work together in partnerships to provide the best service, again, we're all aligned with the mission that we're here to accomplish, and that's providing the best service to the communities we have. And by doing so, we'll continue to enhance public transportation and mobility solutions that attract ridership and create the necessary connectivity of people to the important places they need to get, and also at the same time protecting and reducing the emissions on the planet as far as our goals, not only in the technology of zero emissions, but getting more people out of cars into public transit to reduce the congestion and the emissions that are in our cities today. So it's a great opportunity. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Laura, Sabrina, Mary Ellen. We really appreciated your insight today. And thanks to all of you for participating in today's webinar. You can find a recording of the webinar on our website. It's enotrans.org. And we'll also send the recording to everybody who registered for the event. Make sure to sign up for our mailing list, and you can gain access to Eno Transportation Weekly, webinar announcements, report releases, and more. And reminder, check out the link in the chat box about donating or becoming a member. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.